Hey everybody, we are back live again with Multiverse Comics Presents, and it is a solo act this evening with just me, Mick. No professor this evening. He is not in at the moment, and I thought this would be a good opportunity to go ahead and get everything back up and running on the air. Lots have happened since the last time that we did a broadcast. So I just wanted to update everybody on what's going on and expect a lot more content from us in the near future. So first major development and change in the immediate comic book world for us was that we got a new location. We have moved about 2 blocks from our old location. The building used to be the comic book store in Parkersburg, West Virginia, about 20-some years ago. So a little bit of nostalgia there for everybody that gets to come back into the store. But the new location is quite nice. It has more of a comic book feel to it as far as just the layout and the atmosphere and all that. So we have everything that we had before. Basically the same amount of room, just a different layout. It does have the gaming room separate from where all the comics are kept, so that way you gaming guys can come in and play your Magic or D&D or whatever you're playing that day or that week, and not have to worry about people getting in your way, and the guys looking through comics really don't have to worry about dealing with the gamers, or, if they get a little rambunctious like our Tuesday night Smash crowd sometimes does. You don't have to listen to it, which is fine. So keep it nice and separate, and like I said, we have plenty of room, and events going on every day, so you guys can check that out anytime that you like. So, comic book world, what is going on? There's all kinds of stuff going on right now. Several things that we'll talk about today, and some interesting topics that's come up at the store over the last month or so. But starting off with books, we had some really cool stuff come in. Some classic issues that you don't see very often. We had a Showcase 22, which was the first appearance of Hal Jordan. We did have that one CGC graded, which is going to lead into another topic here in a little bit. That one came back at a 3.0 for us. We also had several other Showcase issues, as well as some Brave and the Bold. We did end up with a Brave and the Bold 28. Right now, that one is possibly in my personal collection as opposed to going to be for sale. I haven't decided what I want to do with it yet. It is pretty low grade, but it is a fairly hard book to come by unless you're going to a convention or something and, you're willing to pay a fairly decent penny for that book. But it's a super cool book. I was very happy that we have gotten it. Some of the other Brave and the Bold stuff that came with it. We had like the first Rip Hunter. There was some early Adam Strange stuff in there. So some pretty cool stuff. If you kept up with the Facebook page, we did post all of these images on the Facebook page, so you can go back there and take a look at those if you'd like to see which ones we actually had and condition-wise and whatnot. Most of them were in decent shape. I don't necessarily think that we had anything much over a 4.5 to a 5, maybe. But, that era of book and especially people that have the stuff don't necessarily, at the time when they were kids and had it, didn't necessarily take care of it. So it doesn't always come back high grades like the new stuff does, which is fine. It is still a coveted book in my eye, and a lot of others as well. So we had some excitement over that stuff. We did have also over the holiday season our annual get-together with all of our customers. We generally do a Christmas dinner and that sort of thing and have a game night associated with that, and that went very well. It was very exciting. So everything's been going very well at the store. Like I said, the new location is working out quite well. We have a lot... we're at a location with a lot more traffic that goes by, so we are actually being seen a good bit more than usual. So as far as upcoming stuff, there are a lot of books on the horizons that you guys may want to watch out for that are coming up that look like some pretty cool story arcs. There is some excitement around the new X-Men Fantastic Four crossover. I know that's going to pay off for you X-Men guys that have been reading the new Hickman stuff, because they have been just going on and on about Franklin Richards since it started. I'd say this will be your payoff on what happens with that. So that should be pretty interesting. The new run of Batman that just started on 86 is pretty awesome in itself. We have a new writing and artist team on this one. I'm not going to give any spoilers away of what's happened so far, but since the last time we have spoken, then everybody should have heard this by now, so hopefully it's not a spoiler for you. But Alfred Pennyworth has passed, and Batman doesn't exactly know how to deal with Alfred's passing that well, and I think that's going to be a huge part of this new story arc, and I think it'll be interesting to see how that goes. Plus, we've been promised to get back towards Batman, the horror side of Batman. Not so much maybe, him being scary, although I have a feeling that's going to be part of it, but like with the villains being real creepy and scary and stuff too. So, but if you do think about it, I mean, it makes sense. Batman wears a giant bat suit, right, to scare the criminals. That's not really something that we've seen explored a lot in the TV shows or even in the comics. Like every once in a while, the opening sequences of a movie or something where Batman shows up and people are freaking out or getting scared about it, and it's just not. I mean, he should be really, really scary. So, I guess that's the point of the suit, right? So, I hope they explore that a little bit more. We'll see how that goes. But the first 2 issues are out so far of that story arc. So 86 and 87. So definitely check those out. If you haven't gotten a chance to already, we do have those in stock and waiting for you. If you need a copy, just let me know. Whether you are a local person or someone we need to send it to, you just let me know. We'll be happy to do that. Also, Dan Jurgens' Batman Beyond run right now is also a very hot book with the realization of who the Batwoman Beyond turns out to be. Again, not going to give you some spoilers on that one. It was a pretty good read. I enjoyed it. You just can't go wrong with the Dan Jurgens story. That's really, really what I'm going to get at today. Dan is not only an amazing writer, but he's a very good artist as well. He's done some of my favorite works over the years. As I've probably mentioned in the past, he was on Superman in Action for a very long time. He was part of the team with Superman 75, which is one of my favorite all-time books. And it's just great. He does a good job at what he does, and he understands the characters very well. And I think if you check it out, you will definitely like it. if not like it well enough to put it on a pull list. As far as the Superman world is concerned, we're still dealing with Michael Bendis and his whatever reason this week to decide to reveal Superman's identity to the world. I think it was a dumb idea. Bendis, I don't know what to say about the man. I mean, he's definitely, to me, a very good setup guy. He definitely sets up stories well. He's done some of my favorite Marvel stories. The setups were great, and the payoffs were terrible. Secret Invasion is one that comes to mind that I really enjoyed. However, I feel like either he wasn't willing to go all the way, or Marvel wasn't willing to let him go all the way with that story. Because I think it could have been really cool had they went with Tony Stark had been a Skrull the whole time instead of Jarvis, or all the guys who were on the ship that came back and were all in their Secret Wars costumes. That would have been super cool had they all been, lost since the Secret War, and we've been dealing with Skrull replacements. So they were able to get that across with Elektra and Spider-Woman, since she was the queen of the Skrulls. But we haven't really seen that so much in any of the other characters. I think that was, they kind of dropped the ball on that one. I think it could have been a lot cooler than it was. But, my opinion for what it's worth. So anyway, DC Black Label books. If you guys have not read any of the DC Black Label stuff, they have all been fantastic with the exception of Frank Miller's Superman. You can't tell me that Frank loves Superman. I think it was a ploy. I think he just wanted to write something else that linked to his Dark Knight world that wasn't Batman, but he doesn't care for Superman. It shows in the book. I don't feel that he did the character justice. It just wasn't that great. However, Batman Damned was fantastic. The current Wonder Woman book is a post-apocalyptic book, which is turned out to be quite good so far. We've only had one issue, so we'll be getting some more of those. Harley Quinn has kind of 2 books, maybe 3 books out right now. It's because she's got one that is strictly her and one that is a pairing with the Joker. Harleen Quinzel, or Harley Quinn. I don't remember the exact title of the book. However, it's a fantastic read. The artwork is amazing. Same deal with Joker Harley, Criminally Insane. Also, very, very good. That one is a story about Harley basically working with the Joker when he was in Arkham and helping figure out some plots or some crimes related to the Joker prior to her becoming Harley Quinn, which is a pretty good story so far. Joker Smile, or Killer Smile, I believe. Also, very good, very well written so far. We've had, I believe, 2 issues of that one. Harleen is done. Criminally Insane, I believe, has 1 more issue. And we've had 2 issues of The Question, Black Label. The Question is fantastic. The first issue brings back a character that hasn't been seen in DC Comics in 20, 25 years. One of my favorite characters. I won't spoil it for you. If you know who, my favorite characters, you'll automatically know who I'm talking about. But pick it up and read it. It's fantastic. And issue 2 was also very, very good. Can't wait to see what issue 3 is going to bring. Marvel side, the Other big thing that's going on, the incoming book, most of my guys that come in that read that stuff was not really impressed with it so far. I can't say that I sat down and read it because I skimmed it. The artwork wasn't that great. The story didn't seem to catch me that much. I wasn't really super impressed with what I was seeing there. The new Venom story arc is a popular book right now, Venom Island. There's some stuff going on with Conan and the Serpent War that wasn't too bad. It's kind of hard to mess up Conan. You know, it's been messed up before, but it's kind of hard to mess him up. You just gotta, swing a sword and whatnot. But they started bringing him into contemporary continuities and pairing him with other Marvel characters, which this one features also Moon Knight. I know how everybody loves the Moon Knight. He's not a bad character. I like him. He's very Batman-ish. I like the idea that he's crazy and Khonshu doesn't really exist. I don't know if that's the case or not. Nobody's ever really explained it. But I think it would be funny if it's just him and Khonshu is all in his head. Which it could be. Then again, it may not be, and he may be the only follower. So that story arc is interesting. I believe the Serpent War just ended with issue 4. We're going to see some other carryover to that. Also, the Savage Avengers, probably my favorite Marvel book right now. I would have said the Immortal Hulk. Since issue 25, I haven't really been that excited to read that one. I thought the writing on that one has gone a little downhill. I feel like it should have ended at 25. Would have been a safe spot. But Marvel's X, which is the new book that is the lead-in to Universe X that we got back in the 90s. That's kind of a cool book. It's got some throwback stuff into it. If you were a Universe X fan, which was basically Marvel's version of Kingdom Come, that was cool. Getting to see an old grizzled Captain America and, the passing of the torch of some of the characters and having either different versions of, like the Bruce Banner that had separated from the Hulk, so he was the Hulk looked like a giant ape-like monster with little Bruce riding on his back. For some reason, Bruce was a kid at that point. I'm not sure that I remember how that was explained, or even if it was, but it was still a cool story. Not as good as Kingdom Come, but the artwork was done by Alex Ross, so, can you beat it? Not really. There's not very many people out there that can do what Alex Ross does as well as he does it, and as consistently. Alex Ross is just unbelievable at what he does. And he does more than just comic stuff, too. I'm sure you've seen his work for other things, and he does other ads, but just about any painted pop culture, especially in the comic book world, anything is generally an Alex Ross something. There are a few that do attempt to do the same type of thing. They're just not quite as good, in my opinion. Don't get me wrong, some of them are quite nice and quite lovely artwork, but there's no one who rivals Mr. Ross at this point, in my opinion. So, other things that we want to talk about. So back to the CGC topic. We have sent a lot of books to CGC over the years. Some of us have very drastically different opinions on the importance of grading a book, why to get a book graded, if you really need to have a book graded, what the purpose is, which company is the best to deal with, why the companies do what they do. Here's how I feel about the process. And if you've come into the store and you've asked me about grading, the first question is I'm going to ask you is, why do you want to get this graded? What's your reason for wanting to grade this book? If you are wanting to grade this book because you want to preserve the book. For instance, I have a copy of Action 252 that was in what I'm going to call rough shape. It was a gift, and I appreciate that gift quite well. It's one of my favorite comics of all time. And because of the shape that it was in, I went ahead and sent it in and had it graded. It came back at a 2.5. It's got tape on the spine, and it's, got some color breaks, and it's got some problems with it, which it's okay. But I had it graded to preserve that book because I felt that it was in a shape that I needed to make sure that it would not deteriorate any more than it already has. So I felt that the case would protect it, and then, when they seal it, CGC's sealing process and the microfiber paper that they put in the books supposedly take care of any off-gassing or whatever. My thought is if it's airtight, you're not going to get the off-gassing in there because there's not going to be anything to decompose that causes the off-gas to happen. But I may be wrong. That's my thought and my understanding of the process. If anybody is out there that can officially tell me, say, a chemist or some sort of scientist that would know more about the deterioration of paper in what I would call a vacuum, let me know, because I want to know. But anyway, so CGC guarantees these things for about 8 years before they want you to recase them. I kind of feel that's a gimmick to get more money every so often out of you for your book. To take a brand new book that came out this week, have it graded, it will likely come back at a 9.6 or a 9.8, provided Diamond didn't destroy it on the way in, as their packing is questionable from time to time, as I sometimes receive boxes with holes in them that look like a forklift drove through it, or maybe they ran over it, or UPS didn't hold up their end of the deal and caused some damage to the packaging, which happens a good bit too. So let's say you get a good copy. You send it in. It's probably going to come back 9.6, 9.8. It's not going to come back at 10. They're going to find some reason to not do a 9.9 or a 10. You can just generally get that out of your head. It's not going to happen. Very, very rarely does that happen. So if you're doing this with a new book, it's probably a variant or something that you think is going to be a key or going to be worth some money later. Because once you slab these things, you can't read them. So what's the point? My thought is if you have a book that you want to have graded, unless you just really enjoy graded books and you like the cases and you want to look at the covers and you never want to read the contents of the book, go ahead and have it graded. But I feel that most people do this in order to increase value of the book. I feel that is something that CGC has perpetuated over the years to tell people that their books are worth more if they're graded. And I am going to say no, they're not. An ungraded 10, or an ungraded 9.8, ungraded 8, 9.2 should be the same as a graded one. You paid a minimum of $30 to have this thing graded. I say minimum because that's the other part of the racket that you get into. CGC, CBCS both have a tier system based on the age of the book, how they feel the value of the book is, and they charge you accordingly. And by the way, they are possibly the slowest company on earth to do anything with your book. It'll sit there forever. The average turnaround time for a modern book right now, they're quoting somewhere, as of today, I believe it was somewhere around 15 business day turnaround, not counting your shipping. If it is older than 1975 and worth less than $2,000, the turnaround time is 22 weeks. Let me say that again. 22 weeks. If the book is older than that or valued more than that, it goes into a different tier, and your time frames change based on the age of the book, the value of the book, and the tiers. But the exception being is if your book is of a certain value and of a certain age, the only options that you have are either an express tier, which is a 5-day turnaround starting at $90, or a 1-day walkthrough, which starts out at about $150. They also offer pressing and cleaning services starting at $80 for that, which I think is also a gigantic ripoff, considering that if you want to have your books pressed and cleaned, you can find a professional that'll do them for much, much less. I'm not saying that because Multiverse Comics does that, because we do, and we charge much, much less. And sometimes we don't even charge you at all, depending if you are a regular customer or not. So, also the consistency to the books and their grading. I don't buy their grades half the time. CGC has a tendency to grade a book higher than what they're supposed to, especially if you pay them more money for a press and clean. In most cases. Now, I have also been told that CGC will knock extra weight on a water stain because they just don't like them, versus things like a page missing or part of a page missing or other imperfections. So they weigh water stains on books more heavily than other imperfections, which I feel is an inconsistent measure in how they do that. Now, CBCS is a much more reliable company, in my opinion, as far as being able to grade the books accurately. They return books more consistently to the grades that I expect them to come back as. PGX I never use because their reputation is horrible. Whether or not somebody likes them or not, I feel that they're more of a West Coast thing instead of an East Coast thing, but I don't even deal with PGX. The other guys that we deal with are Halo. Grant is a very cool guy. He's very good at what he does. I trust his grading on anything more than any other company. He's very accurate, I feel, in his grading. He's been doing this for a very long time. I definitely feel that we're on the same page as far as how books are graded. He has a flat rate of $35 per book. The only problem that you have with having a Halo grade is that we ship them to Australia. Because that's where Grant lives and that's where he does his grading. So outside of that, I think it's worth your time and effort to get a Halo grade. Plus, their cases are much nicer. They don't charge you any extra for Graders Notes, which CGC charges people extra for Graders Notes. I want to say something like $15 or something to figure out why it had the grade that it had graded. Grant includes that for free as part of Halo service. You will also have that book have an NFC chip so you can have those Graders Notes. You just scan it with your phone and you can see what those are, which I think is pretty cool. And again, no extra charge for that. It just is included. Doesn't matter what the book is, doesn't matter what the age of the book is, doesn't matter how much the book is valued. If it's an Incredible Hulk #1, or if it's Detective Comics 1018, you're going to pay the same amount to have it graded. Their philosophy is they do this for the collectors that want to preserve their books and keep them nice, and you shouldn't have to overpay for those services just because CGC says that you should. CGC is not the authority on comic books that they lead everybody to think that they are. I say this because it is, I don't feel that they follow the same standards on their grading. I don't agree with some of the labels that they label books. I know for a fact that at one point we had a book that had a color bleed that came back as a restoration. It was clearly a color bleed on the book. It was a very old book. You could tell there was a color bleed, and they labeled it as a restoration. I don't know what they were smoking that day, but it was a color bleed. Also, if you get a green label book from CGC, that's generally listed as a qualified book because it either has a signature on it that they didn't witness, which if you have a signature and it comes with a certificate of authenticity, I think it is absolute garbage that they will not honor that certificate of authenticity and they mark it with a green label. The fact that they get a book that has a Marvel value stamp cut out, let's say a Hulk 181, for example. Here's a nice story for you that happened to a man. If you have a book graded, let's say that book looks every bit of a 6. Everything would say it's a 6. And then you find out that the Marvel value stamp was removed from the book. That's a missing part of the book. That's a pretty big chunk. Generally, they don't affect the story. They were just ad pages that were in there, but it's still a missing piece of the book. To me, that is an incomplete book because you were missing something that was originally printed in that book, which is nowhere near a 6. If you have an incomplete book, I'm going to call it a 0.5 because it's missing something. I don't care how much the rest of that book is. If you pull a page out of it, if you pull a 2-inch coupon out of that book, you cut 3/4 of the back cover off, you're missing something to the book. CGC says, well, had that still been there, this is the grade, but it is cut out, so we'll put it as the grade had it been there, but put a green label on it so you know that there's something up. Well, there was a man that had purchased a CGC blue labeled Hulk 181. He then takes it to a convention, cracks it open, has it signed by multiple people with CGC witnesses so he could get that coveted gold label. That way we've witnessed the signature. We know that it's Stan Lee on there. We know that everybody's signature was at that con and it was accurate. So he turns the book in with CGC like they do. And the book comes back graded at the same grade that it was, but the label's green. Well, this normally happens because you had a signature that somebody didn't witness is the most common reason for this. But no. What happened was that when they went and regraded the book, they discovered that the value stamp had been cut out of this book. And it wasn't the guy that bought the book, cut the value stamp out after he had purchased it. Oh no, this was missed in the original grading. Now this kind of error, in my opinion, is beyond ridiculous, because if you looked at every page when you were grading a book like you're supposed to do, you would have known, had there been a 2-inch hole cut in one of the pages. So now, this guy spent all this money on this book. Spent extra money because it was graded and certified that it was just perfect. Gets it signed, regraded, and what do you know? We made a mistake. Here you go. I'm sure he was quite angry. From what I understand, CGC had to reimburse him some money from his purchase of the original purchase price of the book, because of the difference that people associate with the different color and labels. Would have knocked that book down price-wise quite a bit. So, oopsie CGC. Which is just another example of, CGC at what I'm going to call their best. So there's my rant for the day. Hopefully that'll make you think a little bit before you start checking out CGC stuff in the future. I'm not saying don't send your books to CGC to have them graded. Until people stop believing that the CGCs are worth more than anything, that's where people are going to keep sending them. It's just inevitable. You just can't get around it. But, I'm going to say, what are you going to do? Again, my suggestion, if you want something done, go with Halo. Grant is by far the best. CBCS is also credible and quite good at what they do. Up to you. It's your book. You do what you want with it. That's just my opinion. We offer the services for all three companies. Again, mostly used CGC for that service because that's the one that everybody's just obsessed with today. But anyway, if you have any questions, comments, snide remarks, miss the professor, you just let us know. Drop us an email. Mick at multiverse.biz. Check us out on the Facebook, Multiverse Comics LLC, Facebook.com/MVS. And I guess we'll be doing these casts a little bit more often. Most likely it'll be a lot more solo deals with the school year being a thing, and my insomnia will get the best of me, of course. So you'll probably hear some more solo stuff. We do have some events coming up, some things planned. We got a lot of cons coming up. We also want to talk about some of the new TV shows. Definitely want to have a discussion about the Infinite Crisis crossover for the DC shows. We'll give a little chat about upcoming Marvel things. I definitely want to get a full panel on board for a Mandalorian conversation, as well as some talks about DC shows like Harley Quinn, which has turned out to be amazing, and Star Trek Picard, as it is a new show that just aired this week. If you haven't gotten a chance to see it, take the time to check that out. So until next time, we will talk to you later. I guess we'll just bag on board this one as well.